Hey, Wilds, like, wiping off this, because I'm definitely not ready for this, but I just, needed to get on here and say hi. I'm trying to find something to, hold oh, yes, okay. I'll use this big-ass book on Gurdjieff to hold the book up. Hold on, let me get back in my spot. Oh, okay. All right, can you guys hear me? Give me some hearts if you can hear me. Give you guys a couple minutes to join. Hello, everyone. Hi, Carla. Okay, there we go. Thanks, Gurdjieff, for holding the books. How's everyone doing out there this Sunday? I just got back. And, okay, you can hear me. Yay. I just got back from Florida and just trying to ground. I see Christina Olivos has joined, and Christina made me this amazing macrame piece. I'll have to share because I came home, and it was in my house, waiting for me. And it's this beautiful, purple dancing Shiva bracelet thing that's epic, but it's all the way back there, and I already feel a little bit like squirrel right now, so I just gotta say hi. Okay, so this week is all of the astrology, as you can see, especially since the Virgo full moon, right? The Virgo full moon was when Saturn came into 0 degrees conjunction with in Aquarius, right? It crossed into Aquarius and really brought us into the age of Aquarius. Well, man, the energy has just been real fucking intense. And why I'm bringing all this up is because the way that eclipses work is eclipses work in 6-month patterns, okay? And so what happens, hi everyone, what happens with eclipses is that, Hannah, what the fuck, I know, hang tight, I'm gonna explain, right? It's so much. And this is what I was talking about last year, and this is why I was this confluence is real, and that, I don't know if you guys remember, I did this post, or maybe it was a Facebook Live or something like that, where I was you're not really going to see the effects of the conjunction until about 6 months later. And everybody was what's going to happen on this eclipse, right? On January 10th of 2020. And the thing is the way that Pluto and Saturn work is that they are more what in traditional terms we call malefic planets. In modern day astrology, we see all planets as having benefits because of course we are millennials. Everything's positive, right? But really and truly, it is positive when you look at it with long vision, right? So that's a lot of what my teacher teaches me, Danielle Dolsky. And so she taught me that the way that we do a lot of what's called time weaving witchcraft, time weaving magic, is we're not in it for the short term, we're in it for the long vision. And what long vision magic and time weaving is all about is 7 generations past us, okay? So it's really common in ancestry work where you're really talking not so much about present moment awareness, but you are talking about repairing lineages from the past, and you are talking about healing so that 7 generations down the line, they actually get a chance to restart humanity, okay? Now, 7 generations is it's around 600, 700 years from now, okay? So long vision magic or time weaving, is essentially where we go beyond ancestors, which is our past, and we start to work with what's called descendants, all right? Our descendants is the future. And so why all of this is so important is because what's happening with all these eclipses is it's forcing us to go way back in the past. And And when you really start to get into ancestry work, you realize that until it's been about 500 years, our dead are not that dead. They're just in a realm like right outside of ours. And our like very recent dead, they still care about the same things that like we do. They still are like, where's my money? And I can't believe my husband cheated on me. Like, they still very much care. Those are what we call the wounded dead, right? So once we start to get to what's known as like the well lines, or like the beloved dead, is like when they've been dead at least 500 years and they don't care anymore. They just want to see their descendants. Hi, this is us, right? They want to see us heal shit, so we stop passing it down to our descendants, right? And so it's so important that you understand that what happens with Pluto is that Pluto rules the underworld. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and Scorpio rules ancestry, okay? Scorpio is very shamanic, and every sign has an aspect of shamanicness to them. Everybody has a shamanic archetype within their psyches. I mean, it's just within us. Some people are more activated in their shamanic lines and their ancestral lines, and some people are really activated in more like naturopath or nutrition or whatever. We all have a healer within us, right? You can look to where Chiron is in your chart to really start to get an understanding of what your Chiron is, right? So like my Chiron is in Gemini in the 8th house in an exact opposition to Uranus and Sagittarius, okay? So what that means, 8th house is the occult, it's shamanic realms, it's the esoterics. Chiron is like where you are the most wounded, but also where you're the strongest healer. And I definitely struggle with a wounded mind. You know, I got diagnosed with depression when I was like 4. And so, yes, it could have killed me. It tried to many, many times, but then it also became like the wound that I very much decided was going to be the thing that I was going to not just try to heal, but also help other people do too through 8th house shit, which is witchcraft, esoterics, the occult, ancestral healing, shamanic shit. Hi, like, you know what I mean? We all have a Chiron in us. And so why I'm bringing up all this stuff is because these are really important aspects that are playing right now. So Pluto is in 24, 25 degrees of Capricorn retrograde. And then we also have Eris, and Eris is like the sister of anarchy. She is the sister of Mars, and she says take it to the streets, all right? And so why this is also important is because the moon is in Aries right now, and it is waning down. We're starting to get into dark moon energy. And so what that means is it pulls us very internal, and it starts to make us very reflective over the last 3 weeks. Now, Pluto rules the dead. And so Aries, which has Eris right there, they're in a square to each other, creating a very challenging tension. Very challenging tension. Okay, and then the moon is in Aries right now, and it is conjunct Chiron, which is the wound. So over the last 24 hours, you may have experienced some really painful wounds, okay? And then on top of all of that bullshit, Mercury, who rules Gemini, is about to station retrograde. Now, anytime a planet retrogrades, you're going to see, especially with Mercury, because it's so fast, about the first 3 to 4 days before it stations, and then like the 3 or 4 days, like before it goes direct, and the 3 or 4 days after it stations, you're really, or goes direct again, which is, I believe, July 12th, because it's going to happen in the sign of Cancer. I believe at 14 degrees of Cancer. And so, you know, and I'll get to that in just a minute, what that energetic looks like. But why that's so important is because, like, the shit that's going down right now, like, communication-wise, because the moon is also in Chiron, could be very woundy, like, painful. And then also because there's so many aspects to Pluto going on, and we're going to have a bunch of what are known, these aspects known as quincunxes, over this coming week. It is really... It's just, there's so much Pluto and Saturn in the air. Pluto says, face your fears, face your death, death of ego, right? Like death of ego, face your shadows, and everybody's facing their shadows, as you can see. And then also, because Saturn's in the mix, it's all about not just facing your shadow, but then also like taking responsibility. So it is like so intense because, I mean, even in the ancestral realm, like I've been keeping my ass out of the ancestral realm as much as possible, because even the ancestral realm right now is fighting. Like everyone is fighting right now. Like I had to go to Florida and just fucking Neptune escape it for the last few days, because like I get it, like real world and ancestral realm and the cosmic world, like it is just really fucking intense right now. And the reason why that is so important to understand is that your ancestors that aren't at least 500, 406 years old are still fucking racist, most likely. All right. And so why this is important to understand is because we are the generation, like one of the things that my teacher said to me right before I went out of town was like, guess what, guys? You decided to be born right now. Like your soul knew this shit was going to go down while you were incarnate. And it was like, sure. And guess what? Not only did you decide to incarnate during this period of time, but then you also decided to incarnate as, a witch. So this is like one of the conversations we had in the coven, like the day before I went out of town, not last week, the week before that. And that just like really, I had to sit with that. And so, you know, one of the things that I do with my apprentices is I really try to encourage people to remember that, like your magic, your witchcraft is the salve that you decided to bring into this world. And your witchcraft, all witchcraft is rebellion, okay? Like so many people think witchcraft is like, you know, love spells and like Eye of Newt and all that shit. But no, your witchcraft is rebellion, okay? So like I tell people all the time, my witchcraft, like, yes, I can manifest the shit out of like whatever I decide I want to manifest. But really and truly, my witchcraft is inspiration. My witchcraft is to inspire wild people to be free and to be rebellious against, you know, like my witchery is rebellion. And my witchery is also raising my kids to be good fucking humans, right? That are like, fuck this, and they're rebellious. And so my question to you would be like, of course you guys feel intense. You're witches. Like, you probably, most likely, just like me, because I'm a witch and you are too, or a mystic or a shaman or a healer, or an intuitive or a sensitive, highly sensitive person, because you're in this group, you probably feel the war on both sides like I do. You probably see them in your dreams. You're probably feeling them and like not even knowing what's going on in your body. Like last night, my boyfriend and I, we stopped halfway in Nashville. And the energy in Nashville was so intense, and it was so ungrounded. Like the rebellion was just very ungrounded. Like where we were, it just felt very, it felt like tectonic. Like it felt like tectonic plates, like just like movement. But it wasn't like grounded in the earth. So like, for example, anytime you're working with electricity, you know, or even like a plug, like I have to buy these like little grounding things because I don't have a 3-prong like thing in that my house is older. So my boyfriend came over because he's an electrical engineer, and he like had to bolt down like the thing into it, and he was like, this is what grounds it so it doesn't like fall out. And it's like we have all this energy that is just exploding right now, and all of these planets that are just like boom, boom, boom. But now it's time for the witches to help it ground, okay? And how do we do that? Through our witchcraft, through our intention. And like some people might not think that's a very big deal. It's a very big deal. It's a big deal. Like it's important that like, you know, you might, if you came out of the Christian church, which the majority of us did, like you might have been a prayer warrior, right? Or like a deliverance person or whatever. And 99% of the time, like, that's your witchcraft. You were always prophetic, you know, you were always a seer. You were always, a speaker of truth or whatever it is. It's just time to rewild it, right? Like it's time to reclaim it and witch it and make it yours. That's authentic to you, right? And so I was thinking about this as we were driving, and I was like, there's just so much. And I was talking to somebody messaged me, sweet person messaged me and was like, I got like attacked for burning sage at an event, even though I was helping to host, this Black Lives Matter event. And even though it's very ancestral to my roots, they basically said that I was not an indigenous person and blah, 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 blah. I mean, if you're in this group, you know how it goes. Side note, the first way to combat that is start with your own ancestry, right? If you don't want to culturally misappropriate, then you want to start with your own ancestry first, just side note. But what I'm saying is that, like, what's happening though is that the ego is so pervasive. The shadow is so pervasive because the ego is what makes us human. Like, it is the most human thing about us, next to the construct of time. And so what happens when you take people that are very ungrounded, they have a lot of energy, but they don't know where to direct it, right? Is that the ego will keep repeating itself. And so somebody that might have been a very, like evangelical of one, essentially what will happen is that the ego will recreate the white savior complex over and over and over unless you literally face the white savior complex and you dissolve the ego part of that self, right? So what's happening, and we're going to see this, and it's important that you understand when Mars stations retrograde this fall, we're going to see a shit ton of this because every time the moon lands into Aries, I see another version of this come through the collective. And that is the aspect of self, right? And so it's important that we understand that the ego's job is to save itself. Like, that is what makes us human, but it's very survival oriented. And so just remember, like, the ego is just always trying to replace itself. So when you have a lot of people that are like pointing fingers and doing this and doing that, it's just the ego replacing itself one way or another. They might have been the pastor and now they're like the ultra passionate, like, white savior of the Black Lives Matters movement, right? So it's just like, just watch and be mindful, because what's about to happen, not this week, but next week, is that Neptune is going to station retrograde. And Neptune is the great dissolver of ego. And this is going to be very interesting to watch because, and listen, like, I struggle with Neptune. I know I have an ego, right? Like, hello, that is how I got really good at this shit, is by deconstructing my own ego. And then it's like, boop, there it is again. Oh my God, right? Like, this is what makes us human. But the thing is that so much of what has been driving all of this movement has been Saturn and Pluto, okay? And Saturn and Pluto, as shitty as they can feel, they're at least very clear in their direction, okay? Like, they're very like, this is what we're doing. And even though it doesn't feel good, at least you feel clear because you're like, oh, this is where we're going, right? Like, this is the apocalypse or whatever it is. With Neptune, no, Neptune makes no fucking sense because Neptune's just going to come in and dissolve all the shit, okay? And so why that's so important to understand with Neptune is that Neptune is the great dissolver of things. So wherever you are with your projects, wherever you are with your, like, your arguments or your disagreements or whatever it is, when Neptune stations retrograde, like, I believe it's the 23rd, right before Venus stations direct again. This is going to be a day to watch, okay? And for all of our social justice warriors, like, it's so important that when you're doing this ego work is that understanding that, like, we're going to fuck up. Like, that is part of the aspect of the destroying of the ego work, is we're going to fuck up. Like, we can't be afraid to not fuck up because that all that does is just reinforce the ego again. Okay, so it's just really it's I'm not saying sit back and watch and wait and do not be a part of the movement. It's time, right? Like, it's time. We're moving forward. I'm just saying, be mindful about, like, if you are investing a lot of time into, like, fights with, like, your neighbors or, like, your old friend from high school that says some dumb shit on your thread, like, just don't, okay? Just don't. Just wait. Because what's going to happen when Neptune stations retrograde is it is like a fog. Like, the fog just gets, like, lifted. Like, the wool gets removed over the eyes, okay? And then, like, 3 days later, Venus is going to station direct again. Okay, and now what's so interesting about Venus is that Venus is all about the appearance. All right, so skin tone and masks. Like, the fact that masks are out, right? And, like, Venus is retrograde for, I mean, she's retrograde for like 2 months. And then we have like a 4-week shadow period on both ends. Like, it's important to pay attention to the things that are being revealed. And so what do we do during this time? We are witches, shamans, healers, and mystics. So that means that we are doing back end work, okay? So, like, even if you feel like you don't have a voice, or you don't know what to say, or you're confused, you don't have to like get out there, okay? What you can do is you can start to stitch and weave this magic in. You can weave it into your children. You can literally do like weaving magic. You can do all kinds of different spell work, whatever your witchcraft is. You just want to direct it towards the collective effort that is moving the progress forward, okay? Do magic to protect the peaceful protesters, right? Do magic to like really seal the work in. One of the things I've been really investing my prayer time to has been for like clarity, right? Because everyone's angry, and like, our communities of color have every fucking right to be angry and enraged. They've been waiting for this moment forever, right? They deserve it. They deserve to be angry. They deserve to grieve. Like, white people just keep fucking killing people of color. Like, I'm angry, you know? Like, so there is this, like, grief period. And if you're interested in reading, like, if you're a book witch, read the book, The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Frances Weller. That book is, like, such an important book for these times. It's just so important for these times. And then just understand that, like, 2020 we always knew 2020 was going to be a shit show. You know, like, we knew 2020 was going to be a shit show because Jupiter, you know, is the great expander. Wherever Jupiter is, Jupiter magnifies things. And Jupiter in 2020 is going over all of the different facets of what happened last year when Saturn was moving through the later degrees of Capricorn, coming into conjunction with the South Node and Pluto. So when Jupiter is, like, going over these things, it's magnifying its field of influence. And so with these eclipses, I'm coming all the way back around. I know this is a longer one, but I haven't been as active in here because I'm sure that the more that you guys get into your witchcraft and the more that you start to do work for, like, a collective aspect, the more you're going to feel this collective. Like, you'll literally feel the weight of this collective, like, of our group or of the people that you're praying for or whatever it is. And I feel that so much that I have had to, like, almost go underground because I feel the weight of it so much, and each of you here, that it sometimes is very hard to even be social. I don't even know how to explain it other than just, like, witchery, you know? So, you know, I think that the big thing is understanding that with eclipses work in 6-month patterns, okay? And so we are just now getting to the 6-month period of time that the eclipse happened on January 10th of 2020. And here we are 6 months later, right? And so with the eclipse, she's going to be closing on, I believe, let me see. I got my witch calendar here. Hold on. 1 second. The eclipse. Yeah, okay. So the eclipse is on Sunday, all right? But before that, we have Litha. Now, if you follow the pagan wheel of the year, it is really and truly, like, in my opinion, the answer to everything, but that's because I'm a witch. But essentially, what we have been working during the majority of this period of time has been the passing between what is known as Beltane, which is like May 1st, and then Litha, okay? Litha is the peak of the year in terms of summer. It is the peak of light. It is the longest day of the year. And the fact that the longest day of the year is going to be blacked out by an eclipse is a little foreboding, let's be honest, okay? Now, here's the thing. We're all going to be fine. We're witches, all right? We're made for this shit, all right? Like, it's time to get weird. It's time to get weird. It's time to find your witchery. It's time to be like the weird medicine woman or man or human, like on the edge of the woods, right? That it doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's time to step into your healership, right? Because the way of the witch is to heal one way or another, okay? We can talk about deconstruction all day long. We can talk about rebellion all day long, but the way of the witch is to heal, all right? Even through rebellious means. But essentially, solstice is on Saturday, longest day of the year. This is a time where it is all about, like, you really want to burn a fire. If you can burn a fire, if you're not anywhere that you're in a fire hazard, burn a fire. All right, it's really important that we really step into this energy of like just igniting the flame. All right, like understand though that yeah, we're all conscious of this energy because we're weird witches and we're paying attention. But the majority of the world is not paying attention. They're just very under the influence of this. So on Sunday and Saturday, you might notice that like the tensions reach a max. Okay. And that's just really important to understand, that you just want to be like, I'm not trying to be like, foreboding or like, what is the word when you say like, see a black cat, like what's, not suspicious. It's like that. Somebody put the word on there. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. I know you can, what is it? You know what I'm talking about? What's the word? I can't remember. It is literally on the tip of my tongue. Not suspicious, but somebody. Superstitious. Thank you. I'm like, I know somebody knows. I'm not trying to be superstitious, and I definitely don't want to put out any weird, especially triggery sense of like the devil or blah, blah, blah. Like, no, I don't do that shit. No. But what I do think, though, is that it is important that people that are sensitive like this, we pick that shit up, all right? Like, we energetically pick up other people's stuff. And so it's important to just really set a layer of protection right now, okay? So I tend to work with, like, Archangel Michael, Shield of Protection, and then I build like a semi-permeable or a quartz around me, an egg about this far off my body. Then I put a tourmaline square around it, and then in between the egg and the square, I put fire, okay? I visualize fire, and I seal the whole thing in Archangel Michael energy, all right? And so why I do that is because it naturally creates like a little where people feel like this sense of like, oh, don't mess with her. It also protects you from absorbing everyone's stuff, because when people don't know how to ground and properly give it back to the earth or give it to water or sit in a salt bath, they just like are looking for somebody to deposit the excess energy on, okay? And it's just like unconscious energy vampires. So just be aware, send that like orb further out than usual. hug as many trees as possible. Make sure you leave offerings for them too. Just really like try and ground this energy out, because the other aspect of what it means to be a witch or a mystic or a shaman is also what we call like spiritual doulas, right? Like we're literally birthing the next generation out, that it's okay to not be of the world right now, right? Like it's okay to, like, your work can be taking care of the earth right now, because at the end of the day, like, we also need to remember that, like, even though like humans are like the main piece right now, we literally can't be humans without an earth. And hopefully at some point that day will come where we really rally for Gaia. But at the end of the day, like, it's so important that you understand that your healing and your witchery and your rebellion can be to be a steward of the earth as well. So all of that being said, solstice is on Saturday, and then Sunday is the solar eclipse. On Friday is dark moon in Gemini, okay? Friday's dark moon in Gemini. Anytime we have dark moon energy, just understand that not only do we have dark moon energy, which is always when we just feel like the most like depressed or like internal, right? Like we're like, I don't want to see people. This is known as dark moon energy. Like we're already in it, right? Like we're already in it. But by like Tuesday, it's going to be intense. And then in the middle of all of that, we have a couple of quincunxes to Saturn. Quincunxes are like very short spiritual aspects that demand a lot of energy and attention. And because they're in aspects to Saturn, this means that this is a week that it's not time to procrastinate. It is time to, like, somebody might say something that hurts your feelings, somebody might do something might happen. Do not give a lot of time and energy trying to explain yourself or fix it or whatever. Like, the answer to a Saturn quincunx is responsibility. Time management, don't procrastinate, like, get that shit done. Like, just focus on the objective that you're trying to complete. It's important you understand that. And then also, what was the other big thing that I was thinking about? Trying to remember. This week is important because we're coming up to that solar eclipse, but then also solstice. Mercury stations retrograde on Thursday in the afternoon, I believe. I think it's in the afternoon. And then next week is when Neptune stations retrograde and Venus goes direct, okay? Like, June is a shit show, guys. Like, it just is. June is a shit show. Also, the day of Litha is also the day the sun moves into Cancer. So we're at the tail end of Gemini season now. Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else I wanted to say. Let me see. Anybody have any questions specific before I pop off here and go to bed? I love you guys. You're like 9 million of you are like suspicious. Like, duh. Oh, yes. All right. Let's see. If you guys have any questions, just post them real quick and I will pop back. Let's see. What was that book again? Anyone catch The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Frances Weller. The Wild Edge of Sorrow is a book on grief, okay? And just so you guys know, Miss Paula, who is in this group, she is like one of our beloved elders and wise women in this group. She's doing like a series on it. I can't remember when I recommended that book for... That was a while ago. She might be on here, but it is one of the most amazing books ever. But it's all about what's known as the 5 gates of grief, right? And so it's kind of like the 5 stages of grief, but it's more in like a personal, then like an interpersonal, then like a collective, and then like humanity, and then nature. Like, it is a really amazing book on grief, and I feel like everybody should have that book. And then there's another book that's really good for rituals on grief. That book is amazing for rituals on grief, But there's another one, and it's called Rain on something dust. I have to find that one. I'll post it below. But yes, that book is it. I feel like every human needs a copy of that, as well as Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown and Soulcraft. I feel like if everybody had those books, the world would be a much better place to live. Let's see. Anybody have anything else? Any other questions? Something, maybe. I love all of you very, very much. Oh, okay. Laura, for the Litha solar eclipse, are there particular recommendations for how to respond to and direct that energy? So Laura, great question. And also I am going to be putting out a thing, on it. And, you know, with Litha, it is just understanding that, like, we, as above, so below, we are the light, right? And so it's important to understand that about every 500 years, there is some sort of great reformation. And so it is, it's important to understand that, like, we are the light. And, I talked about this a lot in the Coven meeting we did last Friday, a little over a week ago, which was just understanding that, like, we literally, like, think about your own Christian deconstruction, right? Like, we couldn't deconstruct our very limited faith and understanding until we had a mirror or something to push up against to help us understand the narrowness of our understanding, right? So, like, we just couldn't, we didn't know until we know. And this is what's known as shadow work or consciousness work, right? And so that's, sorry, I had a phone call. That's literally what's happening to the collective right now, is that the collective is now getting forced into its shadow. And it's like, what? Like, I did not know. And the problem is that because Saturn is involved, there is no, like, grief period for white people. You know, like, there is no, like, oh, you didn't know, like, right? Like, it, within Christianity, especially in this group, like, I personally understood that, you know, we really needed a lot of grace coming out of Christianity because we were trained to be martyrs. We were trained to be codependent. Like, we were trained in these ways. The same thing has happened, you know, with racism. Like, we didn't even realize it because that's just what it was until it literally gets, like, into your face and you're like, oh my God, right? And so the thing that happens is that because Saturn is so involved, Saturn is, like, the most harsh energy. It's just like, it is literally the devil archetype. It's very harsh. And Pluto, like, Pluto wants you to step into your power, but there's stages of Pluto. And so the first stage of Pluto is, like, Pluto will literally put you in the basement of your fears until you are, like, strong enough to own your power. And so that's happening as a collective too. So until, like, the majority, which is at least 50% of the collective, like, shifts over into consciousness, it just is going to feel like us sitting in the basement of our fear for a long time. And so what I am committed to is always kindness and curiosity, right? And grace. I did go to Florida and I ran into a lot of fucking rednecks, and I realized I have a lot more grace for most people, but not, like, fucking racist rednecks. Like, I don't have a lot of grace for them. And I really had to be like, stay kind and curious, kind and curious, kind and curious. Compassion, bodhisattva, heart of the compassionate warrior. And I was like, oh God, help me. But, you know, it's just really understanding that right now the energy is anger. it is one of the very first signs of grief, right? Is first we're not even aware, and then it's anger. Like, we're going to get through the phases. We're going to, one of the things that I have also returned back to, and this was from Christianity, which is like, do for one what you wish you could do for 1,000, right? Just try and understand, try to think about where you were with your deconstruction, right? Like when you first decided that you were like, maybe this is a bunch of bullshit. Like how much grace and softness you needed to like get to the other side of that, and now looking back, right? So this is a really great ego destruction exercise where you're just like, you have to kind of like slow down and understand that like the majority of this group, we are identified as white. And I've had a lot of people ask me like why that is. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, like the majority of evangelicals are fucking white. And so we're the ones that need to do the work. And so we're doing the work, right? And so, we are really like choosing to step into this place of, doing for others what we needed for ourselves. And that is loving kindness, compassion, curiosity. And at the end of the day, it's consciousness. All of this is just awareness. It is literally just helping people wake up. And if you have stepped into the awakening period, which I assume that you have if you're in this group, is that everybody thinks awakening is like yoga poses and like glitter and all that. And it is like the fucking Tower card. It's awful. So just we're in this for the long haul. It's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. And take care of yourself, take care of your kids. Like, your kids feel your anxiety. My kids feel the anxiety, and I'm really honest with them. Not so much about how scary the world is, but just about like what's happening. Like, a lot of people with a lot of power are killing a lot of innocent people, and we really need to become aware. We really need to face these things about humanity and change. And they're like, yeah, of course we do. Why do they keep killing black people? And I'm like, I don't know, right? And so, it's just, it is time. And these kids get it, like they decided to incarnate during these times because they're little warriors. Like they get it. So all of that being said, I'm just trying to like hang on for dear life. And, let's see, Lori Klaus. What guides can I call on to help with anger? I'll tell you who I call on the most. I call on Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is how I moved from just Lilith and Kali all the time to kindness and compassion. Kuan Yin is, she's beautiful. She is the Bodhisattva. She is fierce compassion. Hanuman also, like I really, really love listening to Ram Dass. Like if there was an aspect of like a guru that I would have, Ram Dass would be like my guru, because Ram Dass was so tied to compassion. I've really been listening to a lot of Ram Dass lately, because he was just so compassionate. And, the Maharaji said to him, and this has been something that I've been repeating to myself, the Maharaji said, Ram Dass, love people, love all people. And Ram Dass said, Maharaji, I can't do that. My mind has all of these judgments. I can't love all people. So the Maharaji says to him, like, Ram Dass, love people and tell the truth. And that was Ram Dass's like North Star, as he would call it. And I really love that. So if you're working with goddesses, Kuan Yin is, man, she's so lovely. Mary Magdalene was also very fucking fierce. Mary Magdalene's been showing up for me a lot. I would, if you don't have a goddess deck, I would get a goddess deck and see, you know, who's calling on you. But in terms of compassion, Hanuman and the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin have been really helpful for me, because if you know me, you know I am like Scorpio, Aries, just like burn it all to the fucking ground. I always say my Libra sun keeps me out of trouble. But all right, I feel like I've been rambling enough. Do I have anything else to say? No. Okay. All right, y'all. I love you very, very much. Just, you know, remember that we all decided to incarnate from essence to earth during this period of time. We were fucking born for this, and there are so many resources, and it's okay that your rebellion is your witchcraft. You know, like, it's okay that your rebellion is different than maybe some other people's rebellion. It's okay. You know, like, we're all making efforts forward. We're all trying to reclaim and rewild and heal, you know, like, heal and take responsibility. And it's so messy. Like, if you've ever gotten involved in the healing process and ego disillusion work, you just fucking fall apart. Like, it's an initiation, and when you hit the initiation phase of the hero's journey, it's like you topple over and you fall apart, you know. And that's what's happening to humanity right now. And this is why I started saying a few years ago, my guides just kept telling me, like, we have to be ready. We have to be ready for it to fall apart. We have to be ready for the droves of people who are going to wake up in this period of time, and it's going to throw the consciousness of the collective, because so many minds are not awoken to the reality that because there's so many that haven't, it's going to throw us. We're not going to feel right in our bodies. And so now is the work of healing, right? Now is the work of grounding this energy down and, like, actually purging it off, and not just transferring our trauma from one person to another, and, like, actually, like, ground it down into the earth and rebirth this thing and heal, and not keep fucking doing this, you know? It's consciousness. We will get to this place where we realize we're all one, but we really cannot do that work yet until we face the ugliness that is the self, right? So from self to other always. So I love you guys, and I will check in with you guys later this week, okay? I love you all so much. Mwah. Okay, bye.